The following documentation has been compiled from bridge recordings, sensor logs, and personal accounts approved by Sol Defense Command. All timestamps have been standardized to Earth Standard Time for archival purposes. At 3:42 hours, Junior Sensor Officer Peter Martinez logged the first anomalous reading at Monitoring Station Charlie 7. The reading, initially dismissed as sensor echo from Europa's ice fields, demonstrated 3 distinct signatures moving at 27C on a direct course through the Kuiper Belt defense perimeter. Officer Martinez's decision to run a secondary scan, despite standing orders to ignore single-source anomalies, would later be credited with providing crucial early warning time. The patterns were all wrong for ice debris, Martins noted in his after-action report. Natural objects don't maintain perfect triangular formation while decelerating. By 3:47, Captain Emily Mitchell had been awakened and was on the bridge. Bridge audio logs capture her first words upon reviewing the sensor data. "Well, ladies and gentlemen, looks like all those first contact drills weren't just make work after all." The UES Hawkins bridge crew demonstrated exceptional discipline during the initial phase. Lieutenant Amanda Cooper, at Tactical, maintained weapon systems in passive mode despite detecting energy signatures that exceeded anything in the known Sol defense database. When questioned about this decision during the subsequent review, Cooper stated, "The captain's standing orders were clear. We show no hostile intent until we're damn sure we need to." At 3:54, Communications Officer Kyle Anderson began broadcasting the standard first contact package on all known frequencies, including the controversial prime number sequence advocated by SETI. The unknown vessels showed no response but adjusted their course by 0.47 degrees, a correction that put them on a perfect intercept course with the Hawkins position. Captain Mitchell's next decision would become a subject of study at the Sol Defense Academy for decades to come. Despite mounting evidence of hostile intent, she ordered the Hawking to maintain position, rather than retreat behind the Jupiter line's main defense grid. Her official justification, recorded at 4:01, demonstrates the strategic thinking that would characterize the entire engagement. If these are scouts for a larger force, running now tells them exactly what our defense doctrine predicts. Let's show them something unexpected instead. The 72 minutes that followed tested the crew's discipline to its limits. The bridge environment control logs show a steady temperature increase of 3.2 degrees Celsius, attributed to rising tension among the crew as the unknown vessels continued their approach. First Lieutenant James Wilson, the ship's XO, noted 17 separate instances where crew members had to be quietly reminded to maintain calm discipline. At 4:42, Combat Specialist Rodriguez's enhanced sensor package provided the first detailed scans of the approaching vessels. Their design defied known engineering principles, with drive signatures suggesting technological capabilities far beyond humanity's current level. Rodriguez's initial report was succinct. "Sir, either their tech is so advanced it looks impossible, or they want us to think it is." This observation prompted Captain Mitchell to implement Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha, quietly moving the Hawkins backup systems from standby to hot status, a decision that would prove crucial in the hours to come. At 5:13, with the unknown vessels now within visual range, Captain Mitchell made ship-wide address that would later be required reading for all Sol defense personnel. "This is your captain speaking. In about 1 minute, humanity is either going to make first contact or fight its first interstellar war. Either way, we're about to show these visitors something they've never seen before: how humans handle the impossible. Stand by your stations." Mitchell out. The timestamp on the final sensor log before active engagement reads 5:14-47. The 3 unknown vessels, now clearly visible against Jupiter's bulk, had crossed the final warning line. First contact protocols had failed. War Protocol 1 was now in effect. Record continues in Part 2. The warning shot. Note: All timestamps and personnel quotes have been verified against quantum-locked bridge records and approved for inclusion in this document. The following section contains verified combat telemetry data and authenticated crew testimonies from the initial engagement phase. Communications Officer Kyle Anderson's final attempt at peaceful contact utilized what he termed the last resort package, a simple mathematical sequence transmitted via ancient radio waves, a technology so primitive that even pre-spaceflight civilizations could detect it. The aliens' response was immediate. All three vessels simultaneously activated weapon systems that didn't match any known signatures in the Sol Defense database. They weren't just ignoring us, Anderson later testified. They were analyzing every transmission, probing our capabilities. Each message we sent gave them more data about our technology level. At 5:17, automated defense platform Jupiter 42 executed its programmed response to the boundary violation, a single kinetic warning shot. A tungsten rod measuring 30 centimeters in length was launched on a trajectory that would pass 1 kilometer ahead of the lead alien vessel. The platform's targeting systems calculated a 99.97% chance of the shot, missing all three vessels while remaining close enough to demonstrate defensive capabilities. The aliens' response exceeded all projected scenarios. Combat specialist Jake Rodriguez's sensor logs captured the next 2.3 seconds in extraordinary detail. The lead vessel's outer hull shifted. There's no other word for it. What looked like solid metal simply flowed. The energy reading went from background to off the scale in 0.12 seconds. Then defense platforms 42 and 47 just stopped existing. Lieutenant Amanda Cooper, monitoring the tactical display, made the call that saved the Hawking from destruction. Before Captain Mitchell could even process the defense platform's destruction, Cooper had already diverted emergency power to the experimental quantum shield array. Her official explanation for bypassing standard protocol was logged as, "The platforms weren't destroyed by any weapon I recognized. They were just erased. Conventional shields would have been useless." The quantum shields, designed to flicker between dimensional states, absorbed the majority of the alien weapon's energy. However, the power discharge still overloaded 37 secondary systems throughout the ship. Engineering logs show that Chief Engineer Thomas Wells had to manually vent plasma from the auxiliary power core to prevent a cascade failure. Everyone talks about first contact protocols. Wells noted in his after-action report, "Nobody mentions how hard it is to keep a ship running while history is happening around you." At 5:19, the HFY vessels, designation applied retroactively, initiated what appeared to be standard combat spacing. However, Lieutenant Wilson's analysis suggested something more concerning. They were moving into a formation we'd seen in historical records, specifically in predator pack hunting behaviors. They weren't preparing for a fight. They were preparing for a kill. Captain Mitchell's response would later be cited as the moment that defined humanity's approach to interstellar warfare. Instead of retreating or attacking, she ordered an emergency shutdown of all primary systems on the Hawking. To the alien sensors, it would appear as if their show of force had critically damaged the human vessel. Playing dead is the oldest trick in the book, Mitchell's personal log recorded. Sometimes the oldest tricks work best. The Gambit bought precious minutes as the alien vessels adjusted their approach to investigate their apparently crippled target. During this time, Rodriguez's passive sensors recorded detailed scans of the alien ship's energy emissions, data that would prove crucial in the coming battle. At 5:24, just as the lead alien vessel came within optimal firing range, Captain Mitchell gave the order that officially began humanity's first interstellar war. "All hands, this is the captain. They expect us to be primitive. Let's show them why humanity's primitive technology is still around after all these years. Battle stations, weapons free." The Hawking's primitive railguns, powered up from emergency batteries rather than the main reactor, fired their first salvo at 5:24-17. The aliens, expecting energy weapons, had optimized their shields against radiation and plasma. They weren't prepared for tungsten rods accelerated to 0.1 C by obsolete magnetic technology. The first shot missed. The second shot changed the course of human history. Record continues in Part 3. The Paper Wall. Note: railgun velocity measurements have been verified against quantum-locked sensor data and approved for inclusion in this document. The following section details the implementation of Emergency War Plan Paper Tiger as reconstructed from command logs and surviving tactical data. Lieutenant Commander Derek Walsh's doctoral thesis, Asymmetric Electronic Warfare Against Superior Forces, had earned him a mere B+ at the Naval War College. His professor's main criticism: deliberately appearing weaker than you are violates basic military doctrine. At 5:25 hours, as the Hawking's first railgun salvo struck the lead Exethel vessel, Walsh's failed theory became humanity's strategic foundation. Everyone focuses on the railgun hit, Walsh noted in his combat log. They miss what happened next. The aliens adapted. Their shields reconfigured in 0.3 seconds. If we hadn't had Paper Tiger ready, that would have been the end of the fight. Combat feeds show the Exethel vessel's immediate response to the railgun impact. Their fluid metal hulls rippled, energy signatures suggesting shields being reinforced against kinetic impacts. What they didn't realize was that the railgun attack was merely cover for Walsh's real operation. At 5:26, technical specialist Sarah Richardson initiated the Ghost Fleet Protocol from her backup station in the Hawking's maintenance shaft. The ship's quantum processors, traditionally used for navigation calculations, began generating false sensor returns throughout the Jupiter defense line. To the Exethel's advanced sensors, it appeared as if hundreds of human vessels were emerging from hiding. The beauty of Ghost Fleet, Richardson's report states, was that it used less computing power than the ship's entertainment system. We weren't trying to create perfect illusions. We were exploiting the aliens' own assumptions against them. Each false signal was deliberately imperfect, designed to appear as if a primitive species was attempting to mask its ship's signatures. The Exethel, operating on the assumption that humanity was technologically inferior, interpreted these obvious flaws as genuine attempts at stealth. Lieutenant Amanda Cooper, monitoring the alien vessel's reactions from tactical, observed the crucial moment. They started targeting the most poorly hidden ghost ships first. Classic predator behavior: go for the weakest prey. Except this time, the weak prey didn't exist. By 5:30, the Exethel fleet had divided its forces to engage multiple ghost contacts. Their energy weapons, capable of vaporizing actual ships, passed harmlessly through holographic projections. Each failed attack caused them to recalibrate their sensors, looking for increasingly subtle ways to distinguish real ships from false ones. Chief Engineer Wells' logs capture the psychological impact. Every time they adapted, we added another layer of subtle flaws to the holograms. They kept thinking they were getting smarter, learning to spot our ships. Instead, they were teaching us exactly how their targeting systems worked. The true genius of Operation Paper Tiger became apparent at 5:35. Communications Officer Anderson, monitoring the alien transmissions, reported a surge in what appeared to be confused communications between the vessels. The Exethel, convinced they had discovered the pattern behind the ghost ships, began firing on their own sensor echoes. They forgot the first rule of hunting. Captain Mitchell's combat log notes: when you can't trust your senses, you become the prey. Walsh's theory had predicted this exact scenario. As the aliens' targeting systems became increasingly aggressive in filtering out false returns, they began registering their own ships as potential threats. The Exethel formation, previously precise and coordinated, began to show signs of disarray. At 5:42, the operation reached its critical phase. The Hawking, running on minimal power to avoid detection, maneuvered between the now scattered alien vessels. Combat specialist Rodriguez's sensor logs show the Exethel ships firing at multiple ghost contacts, their sophisticated targeting systems now more hindrance than help. Captain Mitchell's final order in this phase was characteristically succinct. Deploy the Richardson Web. As hundreds of false sensor contacts continued to distract the HFY fleet, the UES Hawking quietly seeded the battlefield with quantum-entangled mines. The real trap was now in place, disguised by an elaborate dance of electronic ghosts. The paper wall had served its purpose. The next phase would show the aliens why humanity's primitive approach to warfare had survived centuries of evolution. Record continues in Part 4. First Blood. Note: all holographic projection power consumption data has been verified against ship's engineering logs and approved for inclusion in this document. The following section details the first direct engagement between human and HFY forces, compiled from combat recordings and survivor testimonies. At 5:45, the HFY Advance Force committed their most significant tactical error. They divided their 12 warships into single-ship hunter units to pursue what they believed to be damaged or malfunctioning human vessels. Combat Specialist Rodriguez's assessment was brutally simple. They thought they were wolves chasing scattered sheep. They never considered the sheep might be wolves in disguise. Weapons Officer Taylor Richardson, monitoring from the Hawking stealth observation post, documented the precise moment the trap was sprung. The quantum-entangled mines, previously dismissed by the HFY as debris, activated in synchronized pairs. Each detonation created a localized space-time distortion, temporarily cutting off the aliens' neural link ship controls. The beauty of the Richardson Web wasn't the explosions, Taylor noted in her combat log. It was watching million-year-old combat instincts kick in when their technology failed them. They did exactly what we expected. They panicked. First Blood officially occurred at 5:47, when the HFY cruiser designated Target Alpha attempted to escape the quantum distortion field. Lieutenant Cooper's tactical log captures the moment. They tried to jump to FTL without proper calculations. Physics doesn't care how advanced your species is. They turned their own ship into a cloud of subatomic particles. The remaining HFY vessels, witnessing the destruction of Target Alpha, made their second critical error. Instead of maintaining their scattered formation, they attempted to regroup. Chief Engineer Wells' analysis was prophetic. They were acting on pure instinct now, safety in numbers, but they had to cross through our web to reach each other. At 5:49, Captain Mitchell initiated Operation Crossfire. The Hawking, along with the previously hidden UES Tesla and UES Oppenheimer, emerged from their stealth positions. Each ship activated their rail guns, now modified based on data gathered from the first engagement. The aliens, expecting another frontal assault, raised their reconfigured shields. They weren't prepared for what happened next. The looks on their faces, well, whatever they have for faces, must have been priceless. Gunnery Sergeant Mike Patterson recorded, "We weren't aiming at their ships. We were shooting at our own minds." The quantum-entangled mines, when struck by kinetic rounds, created cascading distortion fields. The HFY vessels, attempting to maneuver through the chaos, found their advanced navigation systems worse than useless. Their neural interfaces, designed to process normal spacetime, fed their crews contradictory information. Combat footage from this phase shows the devastating effectiveness of human primitive technology. While the alien ships struggled with failing automated systems, human gunners used manual optical sights to target the increasingly erratic vessels. Lieutenant Wilson's observation became famous at the Academy. Sometimes the most advanced technology is a human eye and a steady hand. By 5:53, 3 more HFY ships had been destroyed, not by direct fire, but by their own attempted evasive maneuvers. The quantum distortions, combined with their ship's automated response systems, created a lethal feedback loop. Combat Specialist Rodriguez's sensors recorded the aliens attempting to shut down their neural interfaces, too late to prevent the cascade failures that followed. Captain Mitchell's next order demonstrated why she would later be awarded the Star of Terra. All ships, power down targeting computers. Switch to manual control. Let's show them what human hands can do. The next 3 minutes would later be required viewing at every military academy in human space. 3 human vessels, using nothing but mechanical sights and rail guns, engaged and disabled 4 technologically superior alien warships. The remaining Anxithal vessels, finally abandoning their failed tactics, attempted to retreat. They never reached the edge of the Richardson Web. At 5:57, the battle's first phase was effectively over. 7 Anxithal ships destroyed, 4 disabled, and 1 attempting to broadcast what Communications Officer Anderson would later translate as an urgent warning to the main invasion fleet. The message was never completed. The real battle for the Jupiter line was about to begin. Record continues in Part 5. The Callisto Gambit. Note: all quantum distortion measurements have been verified against multiple sensor logs and approved for inclusion in this document. The following section details the controversial Callisto base sacrifice and its immediate aftermath, compiled from multiple survivor accounts and quantum-locked sensor data. At 600, long-range sensors detected what Lieutenant Wilson described as a tear in spacetime large enough to swallow Jupiter. The Anxithal main fleet had arrived. Initial scans suggested over 40 capital ships, each dwarfing the scouts humanity had just engaged. Captain Mitchell's response was immediate. Initiate Scorched Moon Protocol. Authorization Mitchell, 77 Alpha. Chief Engineer Marcus Bennett's personal log captured his reaction. When the captain told me to rig Callisto base with antimatter charges, I thought she'd lost her mind. Then I saw the sensor readings. Losing a moon started to look like a bargain. The evacuation of Callisto base's 7,232 personnel was completed in 12 minutes, a record that still stands. Lieutenant Amanda Cooper coordinated the exodus while simultaneously maintaining the Ghost Fleet projections that had proved so effective earlier. The real challenge, she noted, wasn't getting people off the moon. It was making it look like we weren't. The Anxithal fleet, perhaps wary after their advance force's defeat, approached with methodical precision. Their formation was perfect, too perfect, as Captain Mitchell observed. They're flying like they're in a parade. Let's give them a parade they'll never forget. At 6:17, with the last evacuees safely aboard the civilian transport Gagarin, Bennett began the final arming sequence. The antimatter charges weren't planted randomly. Each was positioned at specific geological weak points, calculated to transform Callisto not just into debris, but into a very particular pattern of debris. The thing about superior alien technology, Bennett's log notes, is that it makes you predictable. Their nav systems would plot the mathematically perfect course through any obstacle field. We weren't trying to create chaos. We were creating a mathematical certainty. At 6:20, as the Anxithal fleet committed to their approach vector, Captain Mitchell gave the order that would rewrite military doctrine. Detonate primary charges. Let's rearrange the solar system. The destruction of Callisto base was visible from Earth. The antimatter detonation converted approximately 17% of the moon's mass into energy. The remainder was transformed into a precisely calculated debris field that appeared, to the Anxithal's advanced sensors, to have only 2 safe passages. Combat specialist Rodriguez's analysis proved prescient. Their computers would calculate the odds of surviving either path. The wider, clearer path would appear to offer a 78% survival probability. The narrower, more debris-choked path would show 31%. Basic logic dictated they take the safer route. They did. Lieutenant Wilson's tactical log, like watching moths to a flame. Their entire fleet, flowing into our kill box like they were on rails, almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The true genius of the Callisto Gambit wasn't the debris field. It was what waited in the more dangerous path. The UEA's Hawking, Tesla, and Oppenheimer, their systems powered down to near-zero emissions, had positioned themselves in the very route the Anxithal's computers had rejected as too dangerous. Sometimes, Captain Mitchell's combat log notes, The best place to hide is exactly where the enemy thinks you'd be insane to go. At 6:23, the Enkshithal fleet committed fully to the safe path. Their formation, compressed by the debris field, transformed their superior numbers from an advantage into a vulnerability. They couldn't maneuver, couldn't spread out, couldn't bring their overwhelming firepower to bear. They never saw the second wave of quantum-entangled mines. The detonation pattern was precise, calculated, and utterly devastating. The same debris field that restricted the Enkshithal's movement amplified the quantum distortions. Ship after ship lost neural link capability, their crews suddenly blind and helpless in the chaos. It was like watching dominoes fall. Weapons Officer Taylor Richardson recorded 40 ships, each one dying because they trusted their computers more than their instincts. The Battle of the Jupiter Line had entered its final phase. The Enkshithal fleet was in disarray, their formation shattered, their technology failing. But one ship, their flagship, had managed to avoid the worst of the trap. The real test of humanity's resolve was about to begin. Record continues in Part 6. Technological disparity. Note: all antimatter detonation calculations and debris field patterns have been verified against astronomical records and approved for inclusion in this document. The following section contains analysis of Enkshithal technology during active combat operations, compiled from engineering logs and tactical assessments. Security Officer Olivia Reeves' first glimpse of captured Enkshithal tech came from a chunk of debris that crashed into the Hawking's observation deck. It was like watching liquid metal breathe. Her combat log states, "The fragment was still trying to repair itself, even separated from its ship. That's when I realized their technology wasn't just advanced, it was alive." At 6:27, as the remaining Enkshithal ships struggled to regroup, Chief Engineer Wells made a discovery that would change the course of the battle. His analysis of the debris revealed that the aliens' technological advantage was built on a fatal flaw: absolute reliance on neural link interfaces. Their ships were basically extensions of their bodies, Wells noted. Imagine trying to walk while your nervous system is getting random input. That's what our quantum minds were doing to them. But we'd only scratched the surface of their vulnerability. Combat footage shows the Enkshithal flagship, designated Alpha Prime, demonstrating capabilities that defied known physics. Its hull could reconfigure in real time, forming weapons or shields as needed. Energy readings suggested power generation orders of magnitude beyond human technology. Lieutenant Cooper's tactical assessment was blunt. If this had been a fair fight, we'd have lost in seconds. Good thing we don't fight fair. At 6:29, Reeves proposed what she called Operation Feedback Loop. The Hawking's supply of crowd control nanites, designed to disrupt riot communications, could be modified to interfere with the Enkshithal neural interfaces. The risk was enormous. No one had ever attempted to hack a living ship before. Captain Mitchell's response: "At this point, Officer Reeves, I'm open to suggestions involving kitchen utensils. Do it." The modification process, normally a day-long operation, was completed in 7 minutes. Engineer Wells' team stripped the nanite safety protocols, transforming crowd control devices into weapons of electronic warfare. Sometimes, his log notes, the best innovations come from desperate times and canceled safety meetings. At 6:37, the first modified nanites were deployed via the Hawking's point defense systems. The effect on the nearest Enkshithal vessel was immediate and catastrophic. The ship's living metal surface began to ripple uncontrollably, its weapon systems firing randomly into space. It was like watching a seizure in starship form, Rodriguez reported. Their neural link technology was so integrated, they couldn't even turn it off. The more they tried to fight the interference, the worse it got. The battle's next phase demonstrated why technological superiority isn't always an advantage. As nanite clouds spread through the debris field, Enkshithal ships began experiencing cascading systems failures. Their crews, unable to disconnect from their neural interfaces, were forced to experience their ship's death throes firsthand. Lieutenant Wilson's observation became part of standard tactical doctrine. Advanced technology is great until it fails. That's why humans still keep backup systems that would look at home in a museum. I-642, 19 Anxithal ships had been effectively neutralized by the nanite attack. The survivors, attempting to adapt, made their situation worse by trying to increase neural link bandwidth to compensate for the interference. Combat specialist Rodriguez's sensors recorded several ships apparently attacking their own allies, their targeting systems confused by the neural feedback. But the Anxithal flagship proved more resilient. As Reeves analyzed the sensor data, she discovered why. They weren't just adapting. They were learning. Every ship we disabled taught them more about our methods. The flagship was evolving. Captain Mitchell's response would be studied in military academies for generations. Then we'll teach them the wrong lessons. Prepare for Operation Shell Game. As the massive Anxithal flagship turned to engage the Hawking, Mitchell ordered all non-essential power diverted to the holographic projectors. The trap was set. But this time, the aliens wouldn't be deceived so easily. The stage was set for the final phase of the battle, a confrontation that would demonstrate why humanity's greatest strength isn't technology, but the ability to function without it. Record continues in Part 7, The Last Stand. Note: all nanite modification protocols and neural interference patterns have been verified against engineering logs and approved for inclusion in this document. The following section details the final confrontation between the UES Hawking and the Anxithal flagship, reconstructed from surviving combat logs and crew testimonies. At 6:45, when the Anxithal flagship's first shot vaporized the Hawking's primary reactor, Captain Mitchell's only response was a grim smile. "Power failure to all decks," she announced, exactly as planned. The alien vessel, nearly 3 times the size of the Hawking, had adapted to every trick in humanity's playbook. Its living metal hull now pulsed with patterns that neutralize the nanite clouds. Its weapons had been recalibrated to see through holographic deceptions. By all rational analysis, the battle was over. That's the thing about aliens, Lieutenant Wilson's combat log notes. They never read human history. If they had, they'd know we're at our most dangerous when we look defeated. The Hawking's apparent death drift was, in fact, a precisely calculated trajectory. With main power down, the ship's heat signature matched the surrounding debris. Navigation Officer Brian Foster, using a handheld calculator and paper charts, had plotted their course through the debris field. "Like sailing ships used to navigate by the stars," he reported. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." At 6:47, the flagship moved to capture what it assumed was a crippled human vessel. Combat Specialist Rodriguez, watching through backup optical sensors, observed something unprecedented. Their hull was reshaping itself into docking clamps. They wanted to take us alive. Big mistake. Engineering Specialist Jessica Warren's log details what happened next. "We had one advantage left. Something so primitive the aliens never considered it a threat. Hand cranks. Literal manual backup systems that could operate without power. And we had trained for exactly this scenario." Throughout the Hawking, crews began the arduous process of manually loading railgun rounds. Each shell, weighing nearly a ton, had to be moved and loaded by teams using mechanical pulleys and muscle power. The ship's Marines, led by Sergeant Sarah Martinez, formed human chains to move ammunition from storage to the gun decks. Modern problems require ancient solutions. Martinez's combat log reads, "No power, no problem. Human beings moved heavy objects for thousands of years before electricity." At 6:51, with the flagship less than a kilometer away, Captain Mitchell gave her final order of the battle. "All hands, stand by for old-school protocol." What followed would be dissected by military historians for decades. The Hawking, apparently dead in space, suddenly erupted with fire from manually operated railguns. The rounds, accelerated by nothing more sophisticated than springs and compressed gas, struck the flagship's hull at point-blank range. Lieutenant Cooper's tactical analysis. Their adaptive armor was designed to counter energy weapons, plasma, even our powered railguns, but simple kinetic impacts. They might as well have tried to adapt to gravity. The flagship's response was immediate and devastating. Energy beams carved through the Hawking's hull, venting entire decks to space. But the human crew, already prepared for zero combat, continued their mechanical loading and firing sequence. 23 minutes. Chief Engineer Wells recorded. 23 minutes of loading 1,000-pound shells by hand in vacuum conditions. Tell me again about superior alien technology. The battle's turning point came at 6:59. A lucky shot from Gun Deck 3 struck what Rodriguez's sensors identified as a critical node in the flagship's neural network. The massive vessel's fluid hull suddenly froze, its organic technology locked in a feedback loop. Captain Mitchell's final combat order was transmitted by signal lamp, another primitive technology the aliens had ignored. All hands, give them a proper Earth goodbye. The coordinated broadside that followed wasn't just a victory for humanity. It was a statement. Every shell was loaded by hand. Every shot was aimed with manual sights. Every hit proved that technology alone doesn't win wars. At 7:02, the HFY flagship, pride of their fleet, split apart under sustained fire from a vessel they had dismissed as primitively crude. Its last transmission, captured by Anderson's backup receivers, would become mankind's first step into galactic politics. The future of human-alien relations was about to take an unexpected turn. Record continues in Part 8, Documentation Aftermath. Note: all manual operation procedures and combat effectiveness ratings have been verified against surviving crew logs and approved for inclusion in this document. The following section contains the official aftermath analysis and strategic implications of the Jupiter Line engagement, compiled from recovered alien data and command staff assessments. Communications Officer Kyle Anderson spent 3 days decrypting the HFY flagship's final transmission. When he finally succeeded, he reportedly laughed for 5 straight minutes before showing it to Captain Mitchell. The message now displayed prominently in the Seoul Defense Command headquarters read, "Warning. Declassification error. Critical. Humanity employs intentionally primitive technology as tactical doctrine. Standard threat assessment protocols catastrophically inadequate. Species demonstrates unprecedented adaptability. Recommend immediate diplomatic recognition and non-aggression pact. Archives must be updated. Humans do not advance like other species. They keep every working solution they find." Lieutenant Wilson's analysis of recovered HFY ship logs revealed the full scope of humanity's victory. The Scout Force had been the vanguard of a larger invasion fleet, over 300 vessels waiting in deep space. The fleet's battle computers had calculated a 99.97% chance of successful conquest based on Earth's primitive technology level. They had run 10 million simulations, Wilson noted. Not one of them considered that we might be primitive by choice. The recovered data painted a picture of a civilization that had evolved very differently from humanity. The HFY had developed neural interfaces early in their history, advancing their technology along a single, highly specialized path. They had never experienced a system failure, never needed backup options, never had to improvise. Security Officer Reeves' report was succinct. They built a house of cards and called it invincible. We showed them why humanity keeps a sledgehammer in the toolbox. The diplomatic implications became clear as more alien data was decoded. The HFY were part of a larger galactic community, one that classified species by their technology level. Humanity's victory had just rewritten their classification system. The beauty of it, Captain Mitchell's final report states, is that they still don't understand. They think we demonstrated some advanced strategic doctrine. They don't realize we were just being human. At 1400 hours, the first diplomatic transmission arrived from the main HFY fleet. Their request for peaceful contact included a fascinating addendum. They wanted to know if humans would be willing to teach their military about tactical regression protocols. Chief Engineer Wells' response, now preserved in the Seoul Diplomatic Archives. They want us to teach them how to be primitive. Wait until they find out about duct tape. The Jupiter Line engagement's most lasting impact wasn't the technology captured or the tactical data gained. It was the message sent to the galaxy at large. Within a month, 17 alien species had requested diplomatic relations with Earth. All of them wanted to know the same thing. How had humanity turned technological inferiority into an advantage? Lieutenant Cooper's observation became part of basic training. They thought they were studying our weapons. They should have been studying our history books. The final analysis, sealed in Captain Mitchell's personal log for 50 years, was unsealed today to mark the anniversary of first contact. It reads simply, "Let the record show that humanity's first interstellar war was won not by superior technology, but by every lesson we learned the hard way. Every backup system we kept because you never know. Every manual override we installed because computers fail. Every piece of ancient knowledge we preserved because tradition matters. We didn't just survive first contact. We taught the galaxy why humans never throw away a working solution, even if we find a better one." The UEA's Hawking's original manual loading crank, used during the final battle, is now displayed in the Seoul Defense Museum. Next to it, a plaque bears Captain Mitchell's last official words on the engagement. "To any aliens reading this, yes, we could have automated this. We chose not to. Welcome to Earth." End of official documentation. Note: this document has been certified as complete and accurate by Seoul Defense Command. All quotations and tactical assessments have been verified against quantum-locked records. Classification: available for public release per Historical Documentation Act of 2297.